Plenty to get to, but I think we got to start with Nebraska. The Huskers won the Big Ten, secured that automatic bid a couple weeks ago, and everything looked pretty. And then all of a sudden, the brackets revealed Evan, and whoa, the Huskers have to face Arkansas, or they're going to Arkansas in that regional, the #1 overall seed Arkansas Razorbacks, who won the SEC tournament for the first time ever, matched their program record with 22 regular season SEC wins. They've been ranked #1 in the country for like 7 straight weeks. It's a daunting task to go to that regional. Oh, by the way, Nebraska has to face Northeastern, which is probably an underrated 3 seed at that in the first game. And if they get past Northeastern, then there's Arkansas. So I've laid it all out. I mean, it's no big deal, right, Evan? How are these Huskers going to handle it? What's your reaction to it? And just sort of what do you think that the approach is going to be for this team?
Yeah, I was surprised. I mean, I felt when the 8 top national seeds came out that those were the teams Nebraska wasn't going to have to play in the opening regional round. I mean, they won 10 of their last 11 games. They won the series over Michigan to end the season. I felt like they had played their way out of the Arkansas regional 2 weeks ago. And you look at how they're ranked in the top 25, they're right around number 20 nationally by most polls. And so you'd think, okay, maybe they're going to play the back end of those 16 national seeds. I thought maybe Notre Dame would be a destination, maybe Oregon. But when it pops in right away that Nebraska is going to Arkansas, it was kind of a bizarre sort of moment at Haymarket Park. I was there. The team was out on the right field concourse. They had a little live stream going for their reaction on ESPN2, and it was just muted. There were a few kind of golf claps. Players just kind of looked at each other a little bit like, okay, here we go. And to their credit, I mean, they came in for some media availability after that. They said all the right things about, we don't care. We're just going to keep playing our game and all that. But you could tell they were not happy with this thing. And this is just kind of another slight, I think, as they see it, to a team that wasn't top 6, voted by its own conference coaches beforehand. And now they're getting kind of the short end of this particular draw, too. So, a bit of a surprise. Certainly I was surprised. I talked to the selection committee chairman, Jeff Altier, a little bit later in the day, and he didn't have a great explanation for why Nebraska specifically was sent there, other than to say that the Big Ten's league-only schedule really limited their evaluation of Nebraska. So you have to fade the RPI a little bit. I think Nebraska finished at 42 in that regard. And what you replace that with is more feedback from their regional advisory committees, which are these coaches of these other teams in the league that give feedback and provide that to the committee. And at the end of the day, Altier just said, look, somebody's got to play #1. Somebody has to go to Arkansas and do it. Tons of storylines. Obviously, Will Bolton, his second year as Nebraska's coach. Dave Van Horn, the head coach at Arkansas, was Bolt's coach at Nebraska in the late 90s and early 2000s when this thing took off. So a lot of interesting storylines. I totally get why fans are upset by this draw, especially when you look around the Big Ten and you see Michigan and Maryland, looking at much more favorable, much more winnable regionals right off the bat. But hey, I mean, you look at the Big Ten history, Michigan's knocked out the #1 overall seed just 2 years ago in UCLA. Maryland has knocked out UCLA as the #1 overall seed too. So it's not unprecedented for a Big Ten team to go in and beat a #1 overall. But at the same time, I don't think this is something that Nebraska was anticipating here in the opening round.
Yeah, I had the feeling that at some point today we were going to be discussing the Big Ten's decision to go conference only and the impact that it had on selection. Now, I was surprised. I don't know, surprised, but like the fact that the Big Ten got 3 teams in to me was notable, because I was a little bit concerned that the league might get a slight there in terms of its number of bids, because when you play conference only and most of the rest of the country is mixing and matching, playing within their different leagues, it becomes tough to evaluate a certain conference, especially with the Big Ten, which rarely gets the benefit that the benefit of the doubt in baseball circles, and has been fighting an uphill battle trying to prove itself from a reputation standpoint for the last 10 years, and has invested more money in the sport and has changed some narratives. Obviously, when you look at Indiana making the College World Series and Michigan making a run to the title game 2 years ago, like things have changed. We know that, but it still feels like they're fighting that battle. And then it's like, you already had one hand cuff behind your back. Now you're going to put the other one? Like, that's what it felt like when they're like, oh, yeah, we're going conference only. So it's unfortunate that Nebraska is at the center of the discussion. And I think, I mean, how could it not relate back to that? As you said, Evan, it's became difficult for the committee to evaluate Nebraska's resume versus the rest of the field. And where do you put this team? I don't know. I guess we'll just send them to Arkansas, which is a bus trip away. And you can get some fans in there. It'll be a fun atmosphere, and it's the closest regional, right? So like from a location standpoint, and that matters. It has always mattered in college baseball, maybe more than it should. So it's disappointing, but man, I do go back to the decision to go conference only. I feel like that played a role here.
Well,
and you said it too, Evan. So
yeah, well, what I found interesting in listening to Jeff Altier, again, the committee chair, he had like a half-hour webinar with media a little bit ago. Someone asked him about why Fairfield got in as an at-large, and a team that they compared them against, Jackson State, didn't. And Jackson State played a handful of non-conference games. They went 1-7 in their non-con. And what Altier said that I thought was interesting was part of what the committee did this year in determining who got in and how they navigated these teams with league-only schedules is, he said, yeah, I mean, as a committee, they were trying to discourage in the future teams putting together conference-only schedules. They felt like that would be detrimental for college baseball, that doesn't help, certainly with the evaluation process. And so that absolutely played out with the Big Ten, where Nebraska got the draw that it did. Michigan still made it. To its credit, it had an RPI of 89, which he said maybe is the highest RPI of any at-large qualifier ever in the modern format of the tournament. But I think you could, in a normal year, I think Iowa probably would have had a chance to get in. I think Indiana was another team that faded down the stretch, that if they had a non-conference resume to kind of bolster what they had done, then this could have been another 5-bid year for the Big Ten. And that's kind of what it's become in the last handful of years. And so when you cut off the front end in no non-conference games, you cut off the back end in no conference tournament, it's all about what's in the middle, just getting the wins. You have nothing to compare it to. And the result is this kind of weird, throw it against the wall and see what sticks sort of situation that we ended up with for the Big Ten.